this email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Bob Chapman, Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Everybody Matters and CEO of the $3 billion global capital equipment company Barry Miller. We resumed the conversation with a discussion of how businesses are like sports teams. You do a lot of acquisitions, like you talked about the one in South Carolina, or as you call them, adoptions, not just acquisitions. And one of the things that happens is you obviously are buying a lot of companies that are maybe struggling, and you're going to use your processes to help turn them around. And one of those things you talk about is start to build teamwork and a sense of oneness, which certainly resonates with me because when we do project work, it's the same thing. We really want to be together and foster teamwork. Why do you find that to be so important and powerful?
I believe that it almost goes back to that day in South Carolina when people bet on March Madness. I believe that when people go out and play sports, whether it's golf or soccer or baseball, or that it's a team sport. People enjoy going out together and sharing our gifts, competing for fun, and, high-fiving each other, the excitement. And so I believe that organizations can create the same thing. And we have. Where people describe their experience in our company as a family. They don't use the word like a family, they say it is a family. Now, it is technically not a family because a family has to do with birthrights, okay? Mothers, fathers. But why do they use the word family? Because what does the word family mean? It means the place of ultimate care and love, right? Your family should be the place of ultimate care and love. So when people start describing where they work as a family, which is very common in our company, it means they feel valued. They look forward to being together. It is not an individual sport. It is a team sport. And playing it together, there's a great joy of playing a team sport in the field and seeing everybody play their position well, okay? Again, if you're I had one of my revelations was watching a sporting event over the holidays 15 years ago, whenever it was, and it was two football teams, and at the very end of the game, the team that was behind threw a Hail Mary pass to an end in the end zone and went ahead and won the game. And naturally, the end that caught it threw the ball up in the stands, went like this, and my mind again went to a different spot, and it said, wouldn't it be a gorgeous sport if that end who caught that ball, beautiful catch, put the ball down, ran back to the line of scrimmage for that blocker that was laying on the ground with somebody laying on his head with a football helmet, okay, and put his hand down and said, Joe, Clint, great block. I got out there because of you. Thank you. Ran over to the quarterback and said, man, you nailed that pass. In other words, it wasn't about me. It was about what you did that made what I did possible. And that is the world we imagine, a team sport where we appreciate people in our journey, and we have the skill and ability to say thank you to them so they feel valued. So that's a big part of our DNA is recognition and celebration, to create a team sport, that high five. Again, you could play a golf game and do well, but a team sport has got a different dynamics, watching everybody in the team play well and feel you're part of a winning team. And that's what companies can be. The same dynamics in sports. You got the shareholders sitting down in the stands cheering for you, and you want to run out and play your position well. When my son, who's a big sports nut, and he was a star basketball, football player in high school, and he was thinking about his career, I said, Kyle, business is just a sport. It's got offense, defense, play patterns, competitors. Just go play the sport of business. And he said, the good news, you just don't get hurt. You can play it in a wheelchair, And I believe it can be a sport. I think if you take it like a sport and say it's fun to compete, it's not a negative to compete. You don't have to hate your competitors. When you play golf with your best friend, do you want to beat him? Yeah, you want to beat your best friend. It doesn't mean you hate them. It just means it's fun. So that's kind of the spirit we try to, watching my kids play sports helped me realize that business can be a sport too. It's just a different kind of sport.
You describe business visioning and cultural visioning in order to bring what you call the virtuous cycle to life. What are those?
Well, I always say a leader's responsibility is to know, where are we going? Why do you want to go there? And when you get there, why will you take in your people to a better place? Okay. And then with that vision clearly in mind, where are we? And what is the path we're going to take? It's not going to be a straight line usually, but a leader's responsibility is to give those in your span of care a grounded sense of hope for the future, so they can go home each night feeling valued, safe, and that they have a future, so they can raise a family, buy a home, send their kids to school. That is our responsibility as leaders, to give those in our span of care a grounded sense of hope. The same way with our cultural vision. It's not just about money. It's not just about economic security. It's about human dignity. Again, the biggest issue we face, it was captured by Thomas Friedman in an article recently in the New York Times. The biggest issue we face in this country is the poverty of dignity. Not the poverty of money, the poverty of dignity. Because people feel used for somebody else's purpose. And so when we have a cultural vision, a business vision, it's a journey. It is always a journey. And the idea is continuous. We can always be better stewards of the lives entrusted to us, which includes our customers, which includes our team members and our communities. And we should constantly say, what can we do to make a greater impact on society while we create value? Because, again, it's about people, purpose, and performance. The first word intentionally is people. It begins and ends with our stewardship of the lives entrusted to us around a purpose that inspires people to share their gifts, and then we have to create value, okay? If we don't create value, we can't be good to our people, our customers, our stakeholders. So it's all three of those. It's not one or two of the three: people, purpose, and performance. And the stewardship of our people means we got to have a good economic model. I was teaching our case study. Well, I was present when our case study is being taught at Harvard to 160 executives. And after a vibrant discussion of our case, the professor said, is Berry-Wehmiller successful because of its culture or its strategy? And so they discussed it a little bit more, and then they voted. 75% of the people voted Berry-Wehmiller successful because of its culture. Then the professor said, Bob, do you want to share with to this class your comments? I had never thought about it, and I said to him, in all honesty, our main reason for success is our strategy, not our culture. Let me give you an analogy. If Ferrari builds the highest performance engine in the world, I mean, their engineers design the perfect mechanical engine. If you don't put premium fuel in that engine, it will never perform to the potential those engineers designed it. So our business model is that engine, which I designed in the early 90s, that had balance, it had focus, it had value creation. But over time, that journey we instead of putting regular fuel in it, which is the normal way we treat people as objects for our success, we put premium fuel in it. And guess what happened? That engine, same engine, started performing at much higher levels because now people were sharing their gifts with us. So, again, you got to have a good business vision, strategy, or you can't protect the people you ask in your company, because if you lose market share, the revenues go down, production goes down, the confidence of your investors go down, you're going to hurt people. So you got to make sure you've got that good engine design, which we are blessed with. And then you get a chance to put the right fuel in that, which is the premium fuel, and that that business model will perform, and people will have a good future as that company performs at that level. So it's a rich combination of the two. It is not one or the other. It's not just about being nice to your people, okay? Parenting is not being nice to your kids. It is doing the right thing for your kids, creating a foundation for them then to go out in the world and live lives of meaning and purpose too.
Right. In your visioning process, the way it works is you bring people together for a few days that you describe as a personally meaningful, deeply engaging, focused experience. Why do you think it's so important to bring those people together when you do your visioning?
Because when we use the expression "everybody matters," it means you matter. And so, if we're going to create a future, why wouldn't we want you to be a part of shaping that future? Why wouldn't I want you to bring your gifts and perspectives? And there's a process called infinity mapping. Everybody's opinion matters. We listen to it and we try to shape them, because if I just am told what to do, okay, you got to do this by next year because that's our goal, and that rolls up into the corporate goals. What ownership do you have of that vision? Very little. You have job security that drives it, but not personal commitment. So when you engage people in a meaningful process about, from what we've learned about looking at the past, from what we know about the competitive landscape in our markets, how can we create a better future for everybody? And when you involve people in that, and then you share it with people, they understand where you're going. Things make sense, okay? So out of respect, even though we're a privately held company, we share where we're going, why we're going there, how we're doing, because people want to know, again, the scoreboard. They want to know how we're doing. They want to go talk to their families. They want to feel secure. So our goal is to develop with their input, because, again, we want them to feel valued. We want their input, and then create a vision from that says, here's where we're going. And I feel better, because you don't just get in your car and say, we're going to go for a drive, and you don't know where you're going to go because you're in a car. Where are you going? Why do you want to go there? And when you get there, why will you have taken your people to a better place? That is the responsibility of the President of the United States, the mayor of our cities, the president of our companies, the heads of our universities. Where are we going, and why do you want to go there? And if we can't answer that question, it is irresponsible to be a leader, okay?
Right. Yeah, I was also struck by the fact that you don't just bring senior executives together. It's the people, right? Because you want them to have ownership. And that's the same way we do project work. We want the people to have ownership for the tasks.
Right, because when you share information like that, you say you matter. And if our book is titled "Everybody Matters," why wouldn't the guy in the storeroom want to know as much as the person in the finance department? Where are we going? I just, it'd be nice if I knew where we're going, not just here's your job, do that, and pay you well, and you don't need to know. The number of privately held companies I bought where the people in the company have no idea how the company's doing is astounding to me. I mean, it's astounding to me. You don't need to know it's a privately held company. Well, you don't want to know the score. You don't know where you're going. So anyway, we don't treat people with respect and dignity. We may send them a card on their birthday, on the 25th anniversary, but we don't treat them with respect and dignity.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you bring them together as well. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to create this email, send it to you, and you review it, let me know your thoughts. You actually bring people together to have a dialogue and really focus on that for a period of time to make sure when you leave after 2 days, you've got something accomplished.
If nothing else, you validated their input, and they've heard other people's input, and and that collective vision engages people more deeply. And, you're just putting fuel in that engine because people believe in the future. They felt part of the future. They feel valued, and they're more committed to it. Are you going to, which are you more committed to? A goal that you're told you got to achieve, or a goal that you created yourself? Yeah, obviously the latter.
Yeah. I mean, we do the same thing with projects. We have charters where we agree as a team on what the goals are for the project. And somebody will say, well, why are you inviting Bob? He's just a team member. Well, because Bob needs to hear why we chose to go left. He may have some input that we should go right. But even if he doesn't, at least he knows why the decisions were made that were made.
Yeah.
So now he's going to have some ownership.
Well, it basically says you matter, okay? When you say you don't need to know that, just do your job, what we're really saying is you don't really matter. So just do your job and shut up. And that is most organizations. Because we don't teach people to be leaders. We teach people to be accountants, engineers who get promoted into leadership positions, okay? That's like people working in the hospital who don't have a medical degree eventually get promoted to be a doctor. What, do you want to go and have surgery done by somebody who got promoted because they worked in the hospital? Or do you want somebody certified with the surgical procedures of practice? So we put people in leadership positions in every part of our country with no leadership training. Zero. And then we wonder why we have the broken society we do today, okay? It's so obvious, what's wrong. And, we're just about on the edge of having a session with some really thoughtful people because Remember, I spoke at Brown University a few years ago, and I studied what is the purpose of education. The purpose of education in our country originally was to have an informed citizenry so we could have a democracy. The founding fathers of our country felt we could not have a democracy without an educated citizenry, which makes sense. But then Henry Ford came along with the Industrial Revolution, which was viewed as being a major cultural uplift because it created income and job security and benefits in communities around our country. It raised the level of our organization, our culture. But what Henry Ford wanted was engineers, scientists, accountants, technical skills to fill his office and his factories. He didn't say he wanted leaders, okay? He wanted technical skills. So our universities became skills factories. We got the best raw material we could, which is the best students. We processed them through the system, and then we sold them to the market just like cattle. And if we got a good price, we must be raising good cattle, okay? Okay, so the key is our universities are not creating leaders. We're creating technical specialists, engineers, accountants, lawyers, marketing specialists. And then they eventually, because of their education, could put in leadership positions with zero leadership experience, okay? And why don't we have leaders? Is because they weren't taught to lead. And you can't have people come out and say, we need to learn to care for our people. They'd say, sure, but I have no idea how to do that. What we have learned is leadership is a learned skill. It involves listening, recognition and celebration, and culture of service, where you have the skills to validate the worth of each individual with all of their unique needs. And that is what we need desperately in this world. We need universities that start creating leaders. They may well have other technical skills in their journey to leadership, but they're going to end up in a leadership position. We need to prepare them for that because that is what is creating the brokenness in our society today.
Yeah. You describe the concept of lighting fires versus fighting fires, and I assume you're not creating pyromaniacs. So can you elaborate on what that means?
Yeah. When we look at the issues we face in this world right now, the high level of anxiety and depression, the 88% of all people feel they work for a company that doesn't care about them. 65% of all people would give up a salary increase if they could fire their boss. We have a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday morning. When you look at all these statistics, we run around and we try and get healthcare programs that deal with anxiety and depression, deal with alcohol and all the issues that this creates. Why don't we go back to the source of the problem, which is we don't know how to care for each other at home, at work, in our communities, in our country. So if we teach people how to care, which is listening with empathy to understand, recognizing and celebrating, looking for the goodness in people and holding that up and celebrating it, and culture of service, seizing the opportunity to serve others, we wouldn't have these fires we need to put out, okay? So the problem is we always end up trying to deal with the consequence of the behavior instead of going back for the cause of the behavior. And so that we've learned that. And so how on earth could we be in a position today that people from all over the world come into our plants to experience our culture, from McKinsey, from Harvard, from Stanford, Simon Sinek, Raj Sisodia, Conscious Capitalism, they say, I have never seen anything like this. How could that be? We're a manufacturing company in America because we were blessed with the leadership model where we look at our people as our primary source of responsibility. Now, we need an economic model to give them a chance to be where they're intended to be, and we got to make sure that economic model has good footing, good design. But all I can tell you is that when we do this, so our company's share price has gone up 14% a year, compounded for 25 years. Berkshire Hathaway in the same time went up just over 9%. So we're not a nonprofit organization, just nice. It only makes sense that we have a uniquely designed business model I designed in the early 90s, and we came across this premium fuel that put into that engine creates great value for everybody, not just the shareholders, but the people who work there, the customers, the communities. Business could be an incredibly powerful force for good in the world if we simply knew how to care for the people we had the privilege of leading.
You talked about the unique practices you have in place, and you even implemented lean in your company, but you did it with a different focus. So you have it, you call it living legacy of leadership. So how is that different than traditional lean?
We bought a company in Baltimore that was on the lean journey. I hadn't heard of lean before that. And about that same time, we'd created the guiding principle of leadership. So our gentleman running, Jerry Solomon running our Baltimore plant said, Bob, lean is all about people. Lean is all about people. He's trying to get us to embrace lean around the corporation to kind of actualize these guiding principles of leadership. And one day, Brian Wallinoff and I sat down and said, you know what, maybe we could use lean, because if it's all about people, we ought to do that. What happened is we started down the lean journey, which in theory is all about people. It's not all about people, okay? Lean is all about waste. What does the word lean mean? Waste elimination, okay? And I met with Jim Womack, a phenomenal guy who wrote the book on lean. And I said, Jim, as you reflect on this incredible impact you've had in the world, what are your thoughts? And he said, well, what disappoints me is 97% of all organizations that begin the lean journey do not become lean companies. I said, Jim, from my observation, you know why? Because you called it lean. Do you honestly think people go home at night proud of the waste they have eliminated at work? I said, what you should have called it is listen. Because what you really do, with the power of what you discovered at Toyota, was that people listened to the very people who knew how to make things better, and then they allowed them to do that and validated what they did as a team. And I said, if you'd called it listen, which is the power of this continuous improvement, coming in every day and saying, you know what, we could be better yet. What are your ideas? That is the beauty of that idea. But the problem, it became a process around waste elimination and profit improvement. It was not human thriving, it was financial thriving. So people used it to cut costs, eliminate, because that's what business is about. It's not human thriving, it's cutting costs. We got to be competitive. We got to get our margins up. We need to improve our profitability. And it's not that we need to be better stewards of the lives entrusted to us, because we never taught that. We haven't experienced it. It's making the numbers and making better numbers and better numbers. So we called it, I said, we're not going to use the word lean because I hate the word lean. Words are important. Okay. I'd also say to you that we studied Toyota and we brought Japanese, we had Kaizen events. We did Gemba walks. That is so crazy to use the language that nobody understands. You walk around the plane and say, they're doing a Gemba walk. Well, what's a Gemba walk? I don't know, but they're doing a Gemba walk over there. Why don't we just say we're walking around to see what's happening? Nope. We got to use the terms because that makes us smarter. So anyway, I love...
You can't trademark. I'm just walking around talking.
I know.
You can trademark Gemba walk.
So when I look at this language of the people, I said, we're not going to call it lean. We're going to call it the living legacy of leaders. Leadership principles so profound they will stand the test of time. Living legacy of leadership. That's why I came up with the L3 as opposed to lean. I hate the word lean. I hate the word management. I hate the word boss. Supervisor. Words matter. We need leaders, mentors, and coaches who care. We need to change the language of business because the language of business affects the way we behave.
I think the things I wrote down about the lean journey for you was lean is about eliminating frustration, not waste. It's about listening, not telling. And then the quote was, when we allow people and their teams to own the process, they can create better outcomes than any senior executive or group of consultants.
Yeah, exactly the opposite of what I was taught. Hey, I'm the boss. I know how to do things better. I'll tell you what to do, and I felt good about it. So it just flipped everything. Those 3 revelations just flipped everything I was taught and experienced through those revelations.
So as we record this, we're still on a pandemic, and we're also going through what some are terming the Great Resignation, where people are leaving companies. And I was curious if that's had any impact on your thoughts or the way you run your business.
Well, I would say to you, in our consulting company, where we have 1,500 engineers, we've got about a 15% turnover because they get a great job. We hire really good people. We give them a great cultural experience. They go out to clients, and the clients will give them 20, 30, 40% increase in pay because they want this talented people with this experience. Now, that's not bad news. that means we are helping people in their career journey. But I would say to you, turnover in our plants is very low in general because, we buy mature big industries, tissue making equipment, canning equipment, and people have a skill, and our culture is good. Our culture is really good. But if somebody gets, because if we hire really talented people, and they get another opportunity, we're pleased for them. I hear, for example, people were lamenting that because of the demand for engineers in our country right now, their salaries are going up. Isn't that a problem? I said, guys, that's good news. The fact that people in the country are valuing engineers more is good news, not bad news. We should celebrate them. We want them to have good income. So I would say to you that our culture is very unique. It means a lot to people. But if people are given an incredible opportunity, we're like sending disciples out to help them change other companies. So we celebrate when people have great opportunities beyond us, And I would tell you that our culture is usually the major factor in attracting the talent we're attracting today. People say, I watched your YouTube talk. I watched some of the other material on YouTube. If your culture is, as you said it is, that's where I want to work. And then I get a bunch of new team members after like 6-9 months, and I say, how are we doing? I said, it's actually better than I even thought it was. We hope when people experience this and they move on beyond our company, that they take this with them. And we can begin helping other companies embrace this too.
Well, my final question, if I'm working in an organization that's not like your company and I want to make it more like your company, how do I get started?
No, I get that question a lot after a speech, and the answer is this. First of all, there's a lot of free content. You can go to the internet, watch my animated TED Talk, and I would sit down, I'd watch it myself, and then I'd get some other of your colleagues that you think might be interested and say, look, I came across this idea of caring for people. Why don't you listen to this 10-minute animated TED Talk, and let's talk about it. And if we feel it has value, why don't we buy the book, then talk, kind of like do a book study, which companies do. And then if we want to go forward, we can contact the Leadership Institute. We can take some of the online programs. So we're not trying to sell anything to anybody. We're trying to invite people into our journey who want to help heal the brokenness we feel in the world because people don't feel valued. So I'd say to you again, as you did, I think the animated TED Talk is pretty easy to watch. Animation, so you got the visual message while you're getting the verbal message. And so I think, Clint, that you can read it, discuss it, and decide if this is something that resonates with you. You don't have to get I was giving a presentation to global operational leaders for a major corporation. At the end of my talk, one of the gentlemen said, Mr. Chapman, I love everything you said, but what if corporate doesn't endorse it? I'd never had that question before, and I thought a minute, and I said, well, what I'd say to you is, what do you need that corporate's got? Do you need a memo saying you want to be good to people? You don't need to ask for money. You don't need to ask for this. Caring about people, you don't need permission to do. You can do it, and corporate will start coming to you and say, what are you doing to people? That people are so, want to be a part of your team, your performance is good. So you can start with simply caring about the people you have the privilege of leading. That simple. And we could change the world tomorrow.
That's a perfect way to end it, Bob. Thank you so much for the conversation.
It was my pleasure, and your questions were great. I really appreciate you taking the time to help share this message with the people that listen to your podcast.
Well, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett. To find out more about Clint, go to projectsuccess.com or pick up Clint's book, The Project Success Method, at Amazon.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.